Welcome to the Terminology Leading Practices stream of Snomed CT Expo 2024. Thank you to B2I for sponsoring this stream. My name is Nick Egerhaus. I'm the Global Vendor Engagement Lead and Customer Relations Executive, Middle East, Africa, and North America at Snomed International, and I'll be moderating today's session. All questions will be answered at the conclusion of the presentation. Online attendees, please use the Q&A button to type your questions to the presenter. And on-site attendees, please use the microphone provided in the room. I'm now pleased to introduce Darijus Strasunskas from Helseplattformen, Norway, who will be presenting Diving into Snomed CT and IDMP, Early Insights from Norway's Development Efforts. Darijus, please go ahead.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Yes, very good. I'm Darijus Strasunskas, coming from Norway, and we'll be talking today about Snomed CT medicaments. Basically, we'll go through motivation, why we do that, and what kind of method approach we chose, and some findings, and of course we'll look into the challenges, opportunities, and what we can do in future. So context is Norwegian, actually. So it's quite, we are Helseplattformen, and we are delivering EHR system for hospitals and municipalities. So basically it's the same system used by secondary and primary care, which kind of, in itself kind of gives good opportunity for interoperability. So less data exchange and, about the patient, everything is in one system for the central Norway. The slide looks a bit forward. So on 9th of November, we have the last big implementation. It will be in the upper part of the central Norway. So we will totally have 9 hospitals and 34 municipalities on the system. We don't have too many GPs yet. There are some testing of the pilots, and we have all the laboratories, and we have the link to ambulance and emergency rooms. So semantic interoperability, actually, that was a main driver for us actually. And what is semantic interoperability? So it's the best, of course, when we all can relate to something, to one worldview, say Snomed. Unfortunately, there are more typically worldviews that we need to adjust ourselves to or relate in order to interoperate. So, as everyone already knows, and it was mentioned during this event, that the data are complex, and we have a lot of interplay between the diagnosis, medicaments, etc., and even between the different standards. In Norway, municipalities or GPs were used to use ICPC2 for diagnosis. ICDT was used by specialists, and then we have Snomed. And what we did in our system, luckily, we have mapped, and we have all 3 of them available for search. Whenever you search for diagnosis, you can search in the free text and find, the Snomed, basically. Snomed CT concept is recorded on the record. But for search and the mapping in your window, when you choose, all 3 are displayed. Finally, when looking into the patient and prescribing medicines, it's quite important to have always kind of available information, what is the diagnosis, etc. And since we are using the Snomed for all that, we would like as well to continue using Snomed while European Union now is implementing ISO IDMP standard for medication. Which is we as well in Norway start looking into and making an effort to go forward. And if you want, by the way, to learn more of our experience and data benefits we are seeing using Snomed CT in Central Norway, please come to my colleague's presentation tomorrow at 2. She will be giving more insight into the benefits we C. National roadmap for transition to IDMP. Basically, there is a so-called safest project that is now preparing the APIs and data models and as well the management tool for data. And it's targeted to be finished next year. So that will kind of generate the initial set of the national PHP IDs and some global PHP IDs. We envision that it will be kind of transitional. First, it will take a couple of years perhaps before everyone transits to the new data model for medications, before we actually can go further and exchange the medication information across the borders. So a bit oversimplified interplay of national medication registry that is called FEST with the Snomed city. So basically we have the brands that are mapped to clinical drugs in Snomed. And then we use the medicinal product form and medicinal product as the top level hierarchy from medications in Snomed. Oops, that was wrong. And IDMP as well is oversimplified the model, where we can see that the FEST or not the FEST, it will replace with a time being the current national registry. And it encompasses kind of more data than Snomed. The IDMP is developed for regulatory as well objectives. So it will encode both brands and packages. And, but the biggest changes, of course, is pharmaceutical product. How it is different from the produced or manufactured product? Yes, it is basically because of administrable dose form. While Snomed is based on manufactured dose form. And so each pharmaceutical product as such will have a set of PHP IDs that stands for just pharmaceutical product ID, and 4 levels are envisioned to be used. So the case for a level 2 is not clear, but the level 1 is just purely substance. We may think it's kind of similar to medicinal product in Snomed. Level 3 is substance plus dose form, which is kind of connotates with a medicinal product form. So it's a bit different. And the level 4, again, kind of similar to clinical drug. The difference is the forms. No discrepancies between Snomed and IDMP. Already mentioned manufactured dose versus administrable dose. And so in most cases, the medication or the manufactured dose remains same or administrable dose is actually same as manufactured. For instance, for tablets, capsules, etc. And that's the most of medicaments, of course. But there are certainly like the powder that needs to be made into solution, etc. So they change the form, change as well the concentration. And a bit different abstraction levels, granularity. So since medicinal product form is based on intended site, it's a bit more generic than actually the administrable dose form and administrable route or route of administration for level 3 PHP ID. And granularity of release characteristics. Snomed only differentiates between conventional release and prolonged, while IDMP looks into the actual the value of the attribute, meaning 48 hours, 24 hours. That's the different groupings. So mapping approach. Yeah, so of course, looking into the state of the art. So there are many approaches pointing that, okay, what's the similarities, basically what I covered, listing how they are similar and what is possible to do, how we can relate the two standards. I won't be going into details here. But our hypothesis before we started were like, okay, so Active ingredients, that mapping we need to maintain somehow. It should be internationally maintained and should not be too difficult to establish. I mean, substance is substance, right? Then medicinal product form and the level 1, well, again, expecting that it's entirely based on a substance without any further attributes, we could expect we'll be able to map one-to-one. Medicinal product form and level 3, yeah, well, again, 85% roughly expectation due to the how many actual manufactured forms are being transformed to administrable form. So meaning that 85% are not transformed and the rest typically needs transformation, right? So the difference. And similar for the clinical drug. Yeah, and the typical approaches, so it could be the standard going through the properties, looking into the value, and then trying to derive how similar or not the concepts are. Or looking into instances, right? So if we look here in the audience and say, oh yeah, those 6 people there are pharmacists and they actually as well play piano. Oh, can we say that all pharmacists are pianists too? Most likely not, right? If because it's totally different domains. But in our case, domain is same. It's medication. That's why we thought it's quite good an opportunity for us since already the project started generating the PHP IDs, and we had brands mapped to clinical drugs, and they were generating PHP IDs, so a starting point from brands. So we have same subset of same population, different groupings, same domain. So that was our motivation to go for, yeah, sorry for, I see the colors changed somehow. Everyone knows how, it's PowerPoint. But I hope you can read it. It's just brands and packages, which is part of future IDMP, and currently we have the national registry. And that's what we take as a kind of for our mapping. Brands, and we look as a population and look how they are grouped and try to reason or say something about the similarity of the groupings. So as a basis, and for the mapping, we actually had only around 70% of the brands from national registry. That was at the time of the exercise, that was the scope of the project that had generated PHP IDs. So we didn't have complete set of the national registry to work on, unfortunately. That as well kind of gives restriction and maybe certainly influenced the mapping result, as most likely the most complex cases needed either to have the data revised a bit, quality improved, etc., and actually could really change the result. But let's go into the initial findings. Level 4, we got surprisingly 97% overlap. And looking into the amount of the medication that needed to undergo those transformations, it was like 15% that were actually as well kind of groupings totally matched. So if someone tries to calculate and struggles to get 97, adding 81 and 15, so that's comma that is not present. Medicinal product and the level 3, we got down to 71. I mean, it's like, well, not that we targeted to achieve our hypothesis, but obviously when looking into the data, we see certainly that the intended site is quite more generic concept than the administrable dose form. And that breaks groupings quite a lot. Yeah, level 1 and medicinal product 94%. Well, it was, I mean, having level 4 97, it was kind of more expectation that we will get higher score here. But looking again in the data, it mostly looked like it's due to data discrepancies, or maybe, you know, that's still early stage of the algorithm, etc. It could, yeah, well, there is no no good explanation except that there is a data quality issue there. So revising our hypothesis, we didn't target the active ingredient mapping. That map, to some extent, well, I hope it will be produced. To some extent, we can take same approach, since we have the substances from national registry as well mapped to Snomed. And if the national registry will be substances will be mapped to the substances to be used by IDMP, we can establish the mapping on this, or just, you know, one-to-one. And medicinal product level 1, good result. So in future, we actually can only foresee that we need to do direct mapping based on substances rather than actually playing around with instances, so to speak. A medicinal product form, yeah. Here it would be interesting actually to look if we can play around Snomed city medicinal product, like, you know, intended site, and then adding the manufacturer dose form from the clinical drugs, and see if we can kind of, you know, then we split or make the grouping a bit more groupings instead of one, right? Like the child for under the medicinal established medicinal product forms, and then try to match and see how that corresponds. And can we use then afterwards the hierarchy from you know, the medicinal product hierarchy and those created groups under with the manufacturer dose form to actually say something about the correspondence equality of the two standards. Yeah. So on the level 4 and clinical drugs, certainly we need to return back when we will have complete set of data, as we then foresee. This percentage should go down. Basically, it was kind of an exercise to see how far we are, or how far the two standards are from each other at the given moment, right? So since we're really interested in kind of, you know, complying to regulatory requirements, at the same time to continue using Snomed, as we see huge value. So some findings, right? So therapeutical and pharmaceutical substances, mainly Snomed city top level of medication based on therapeutical substance, methadone, for instance, while clinical drugs are on more pharmaceutical substances, methadone hydrochloride, while IDMP uses pharmaceutical substance all the way up. That as well creates, you know, if we look into the mapping based on the attribute value, makes it more difficult because it's different substance. If like code ID level. Anyways, so what we look forward, that's actually to have that mapping in one or another way, with the help maybe of the international society community, right? And then that we'll be able to continue using Snomed, including medicaments in our solution, and while then using IDMP for communication across outside our system, across the borders. So way forward. So in generally, we are really believe in interoperability and the linking, interlinking data. Specifically, as I mentioned, you know, for this particular exercise, it would be interesting to look to see if that, you know, kind of creating as a subgroupings for a medicinal product form would help us to increase the level of mapping at IDMP level 3. And well, globally, so we would like to encourage, and ask to consider extending perhaps Snomed CT with administrable dose forms for clinical drugs and medicinal product form. And that could be something like that, where pharmaceutical substances are not same as therapeutical, perhaps creating a medicinal product that is based on pharmaceutical active ingredient could be useful. And that gives a bit broader context, not context, but possibilities for us. So we can choose which one to map. So we can map and use the power of Snomed. That's a simple hierarchy there. And medicinal product form, likewise, for the including pharmaceutical ingredients and dose form. Would make, like, again, sub-concept for existing medicinal product form, which would directly then map to level 3 in IDMP, and where the dose form undergoes transformation on the level of clinical drug level, thus creating another clinical drug with administrable dose form. So, and having the two would really as well give us a chance to one-to-one mapping between the two standards. So it's not big changes, but work is necessary. So that's my concluding words. If you have any questions, please.
Thanks, Darijus. We'll now take your questions. And as a reminder, if you're in the room, please use the microphone to ask your question.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned several times the problem between manufactured dose form and administrable dose form, but you never mentioned administrable strength, because the strength in many cases changes too, and I don't have a good overview, like how have you solved that?
Do we need to solve that at this level? If we are just introducing administrable dose form and keep the strengths as it is, sort of, we don't consider how much solution is added, natrium chloride or something, right? So because it's endless, it is not endless, because, there are cocktails. When you ask for gin and tonic, so you expect to have some, mix. Same in medicaments. There is a standard mixtures, so they can be represented, but I think for its interoperability sake, that we can map the models, it should be enough to just represent the standard, like one-to-one strengths. Just say that, okay, changes to the administrable dose will be a solution, not a powder. Strength is same. Then, anyways, afterwards, yeah, it will be like right? So the dose the patient is prescribed, that is kind of guiding how much liquids, so to speak, you need to add to the powder. So I think so we can keep at the model level at this level, maybe. That's my answer.
Thank you. It's very interesting. I saw in the Venn diagram. I wonder that how Norway are going to implement those. It seems like you have the medication catalog already, right? In the EMR.
Yeah.
And then you are going to map those with the Snomed and also map those with the IDMP or what? And this is the same situation in Thailand. We haven't have the Snomed for drug extension yet, but we already have some kind of that dictionary, but data model similar to the Snomed CT. I wonder that when you succeed to map with IDMP, will that IDMP be in the EMR or it will be managed differently? So kind of the two. Can you go back to the Venn diagram?
You're referring to the maybe?
Yeah,
Or actually?
no,
No,
the-
wasn't here. That's what we have now currently implemented in our system. So we have both national registry and top level of the Snomed medicines in the system. So our prescription, both for out or in patients, are based on the generics, on clinical drugs mostly. So Liv Johanna tomorrow will give the numbers. But so we have that in our system, both registries, if we can call that, or national registry and Snomed. When IDMP will come, so really depending what solution we will have, hopefully, you know, as I had in my last on my last slide, then we will have one-to-one mapping. So the code we can import and use some items, or you know, the field where we store IDMP equivalent code for communication, right? When we are sending the prescription out, we can use equivalent ID to send it out across the border or into national or into other systems nationally. So we will need to store the IDs inside, or yeah, typically in the we have how to say configured Epic system. It's American system for EHR. So that allows us to have additional codes, additional fields to on the medical record.
So you still using FEST or the local?
No. We are using currently, since we don't have IDMP, right? So we are using inside the system, we are using Snomed. So we are not prescribing on a brand level. For outpatient, because then they need to go to pharmacy and pick up the order medicines. So we are using, we need to send FEST out. So here is not visualized, but FEST has some groupings too, or they try to generalize. Liv Johanna as well will show the numbers, you know, tomorrow. And then when there is one-to-one mapping between clinical drug and then that grouping in a FEST, then it goes out as generic prescription, not a brand. When there is no direct mapping, then we sending out as a package or as a brand. So then we unfortunately cannot kind of prescribe on generic level. Yes, and in future I hope that it will be just additional set of codes, equivalent codes on different levels that we can use when IDMP, because IDMP will be replacing FEST at that level. From the brands down, it will be IDMP codes, so we will need to have them.
Thanks, Darijus. With that, we'll conclude the session, and online delegates, you can stay here for the next presentation in the stream or access another session through the event lobby. Thanks again.